Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grid Live Wrap Up. A little earlier, Formula One Canada Grand Prix is done. But we're on the air, and we encourage everyone in the chat room comment with your opinions and questions from F1, INDYCAR, MotoGP, Repco Supercars, and of course the Grid ranking. Joe San Diego here, along with Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish and Ben Schneider. Big thank you to our Patreon subscribers calling the show, Mark, Robert, and David, for investing in the Grid Network each and every month. You too can invest in the Grid Network, help us get to the track more frequently. We're going to be at a track this weekend for Formula E, so definitely check out our Patreon links in the video description, and buy me a coffee. You want to do a one-time contribution, you set the amount, or you could buy a cup of coffee for your favorite on-air person right here on the Grid Network, or any one of the hardworking members of the Grid Network team. Speaking about hardworking, Kobe, the Canadian Grand Prix, I think that's where we saw where essentially a lot of hard work from one team got them a milestone win today.
Yeah, for sure. Milestone win in Formula One. We also had a milestone win in the INDYCAR series as well, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But starting with the Canadian Grand Prix, you had a safety car, a virtual safety car, and battles all throughout the field, except for, unfortunately, the very front of the field, because Max Verstappen went uncontested again with another pole and race win. 4 wins in a row for Verstappen, and this is the 100th win for Red Bull, and Verstappen ties Ayrton Senna with 41 wins. It took Senna 10 years to get to number 41, but Verstappen only 9 years, and it seems like he's still going to be going for quite a handful of years, still very young. Verstappen is now 10 wins away from tying Alan Prost. Ben, is today's record for Verstappen validation that he is truly one of the best Formula One drivers of all time?
Well, Kobe, anytime you can say you've matched Ayrton Senna in anything in Formula One in terms of a career achievement, I think you're doing pretty well. So Max Verstappen is already, in my mind, maybe not the greatest of all time yet. He's not in the 7-time champion threshold with Hamilton or Schumacher just yet, but if not the greatest of all time, one of the all-time greats. I think that much is undeniable at this point. 41 wins equaling Senna, and I think unless Red Bull just fall off the face of the earth this summer, well on his way to being a triple world champion and emulating Senna's record and mark in that regard as well. So, you match Senna in both wins and championships, and Senna's certainly one of the all-time greats, arguably the greatest of all time because of the what-if factor. Of course, he was robbed of probably at least a handful more years that he could have continued to add to his totals, unfortunately. But for Max Verstappen right now, we know that he's not going to stop here at 41 wins. He's got a long way to go in his career, still plenty of time to add to his records. I think absolutely validation. I think he should have already been validated in the minds of most people as one of the greats, certainly that we've seen of this generation and even in the grander scheme of things all time. But, you match Senna, it's undeniable at this point. He is there, and he's going to continue to add to his record for a long time to come.
He'll be adding on to his record. And I think something you mentioned, Ben, that for quite some time he should have been seen as one of these drivers that is one of the best when it comes to F1. It's unfortunate. I think a lot of folks, they look at Abu Dhabi 2021 as, oh, he's really a one-time champion. The record book shows he's a 2-time champion. He still goes out there, races hard, wins races. We got to remember, he was winning as soon as he joined Red Bull, his first race with Red Bull. I think the talent Max Verstappen has, the team, they are on a tear. And this is part of F1. A lot of times, Alan Prost, Ayrton Senna, they had some of the best cars to go out there, get the wins, get the record. Max Verstappen is at that level, and he's racing against some tough competition with Lewis Hamilton, Mercedes, Fernando Alonso with the Aston Martin this year is looking strong. Ferrari can get their act together. They seem to have a good car as well, too. And he is just making it look easy when you look over his teammate, Sergio Perez, who today was not really a contender, not really a factor. I think Max Verstappen is going to have a clear road to the championship for the rest of 2023.
Yeah, for sure, and that's undeniable at this point. Max has basically one hand on the championship, and unless something catastrophic happens to him, which I don't see happening, I think this year's World Championship is certainly going to be his as well. And it's really amazing to see what he's accomplished in Formula One. Remember, he just come into the highest, the pinnacle of motorsport at just 16 years old. People were wondering, why are you putting a 16-year-old on a Formula One car? Can he handle this? And Max Verstappen proved from the get-go that he had what it takes to be a Formula One driver, and now become a multi-time world champion. And in a place in the history books. If Max Verstappen stopped racing right now, that would be perfectly fine because he has nothing else to prove. He can only add to his Formula One legacy at this point. And I believe we have a comment in the chat room. We want to display that. Yeah, from Adam Limmer. He said, you can remember when Ayrton Senna was around. He said, what Max did today, equaling his wins record, is remarkable and incredible. And certainly has a really great team and car behind him as well. Casey, hello Casey. Hope you enjoyed your weekend at Berlin Raceway covering the Arkham Menard Series race. I'm sure you're going to have a lot to say about that tomorrow night. And moving on, the battle for second was contested between Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso. In the end, Alonso ended up taking second and Hamilton got third. Aston Martin had the upper hand today, but Mercedes is still ahead of Aston Martin in the constructors, despite George Russell crashing out of the race. Will this battle last all season long, and can Mercedes get the best of Aston Martin and pull away?
I do anticipate Mercedes is going to get the best of this battle. They have the resources. They have two great drivers. They're going to take the constructors' position away from Aston Martin and take that hands down. When it comes to Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton, this is going to be, I think, a great battle all year long. There are some tracks where it seems like Fernando Alonso, he could really carry that car to where levels Lance Stroll can't do it. Fernando Alonso, I think, still has a lot to prove against Lewis Hamilton. Remember, they were bitter rivals when they were first teammates. I think he really wants to go out there, bring the fight to Lewis Hamilton. And Lewis Hamilton doing what he could do with that car. Not the best car. They got the upgrades. They're looking faster. I think for Lewis Hamilton is looking at potentially getting a win this year, and I will not be surprised when Fernando Alonso gets a win this year as well.
If they're going to get wins, they're going to have to stop Red Bull, who are on pace for a perfect season. Again, I don't know if they can keep this pace going all year. It's probably inevitable at some point that you're going to have some sort of reliability issue, or maybe Verstappen and Perez will come together and collide like the Mercedes did in 2016 that prevented them from going on a run to potentially have a perfect season there. But I think for me, it comes down to the second drivers. You know, when we look at Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton, you know, you see Alonso has a 15-point edge in the standings right now. But I think that Mercedes is maybe just a little bit better than the Aston Martin right now. I suppose that's how it should be, with Aston Martin being a customer team using the Mercedes power units. You'd expect the Mercedes to have a little bit of an edge in terms of resources and things like that. Certainly the history in recent years in Formula One. But I think right now, if you look at Alonso and Hamilton being in a very tight battle, you go down to the second driver, and it's George Russell versus Lance Stroll. And again, despite what you see today with George Russell having to retire the car and Lance Stroll doing a good job to pick up an extra point there at the end and get Valtteri Bottas, I still think most people would give the edge to George Russell in terms of who has the advantage in terms of a second driver, Mercedes or Aston Martin. So that might be what makes the difference for me in terms of this battle. And I do agree. I think Mercedes will pull ahead. That being said, when it comes to the opportunities to sneak in a win, when Red Bull do falter, if they do falter this year, I think it's going to come down to Alonso and Hamilton, and that's going to be the battle to watch. So I think at least one of them will get a win at some point this year. But the way Red Bull's looking right now, it would not surprise me if we're talking about them having 18, 19, 20 wins by the end of the year. They are just on a completely different planet right now, and everybody else is playing catch up.
Yeah, Red Bull is definitely in a class of their own, and everyone else is just racing their own race. And it would be absolutely amazing if Red Bull is able to go 100% this season and win every single race this year, whether it's Verstappen or Sergio Perez. But as we know in racing, it's very hard for that to happen. I remember looking at the W Series last year, we were thinking Jamie Chadwick was going to go on and win all of those races. But unfortunately, it just slipped up, and that didn't happen. So I certainly think while Max Verstappen and Red Bull in general are going to be the favorites to win every single F1 race this season, there might come a time when bad luck is going to strike, and then an Alonso or a Hamilton will have a chance to get the win. So, Ben, I totally agree with you. I think one of those two drivers certainly have the best opportunity to take a win away from Red Bull if the opportunity arises, or when the opportunity arises. And looking at another team, Ferrari, they end up getting 4th and 5th today. Leclerc said he was happy after the race. The team ordered Carlos Sainz not to pass Charles Leclerc, and Sainz did a good job holding off Sergio Perez in the second Red Bull, who had quite an off day. Ben, yesterday we asked if the Le Mans victory could give Ferrari's Formula One program a shot in the arm. Do you think today was a small step forward for that team?
Well, first and foremost, congratulations to Ferrari. I know this was a huge win for them, and to finally be overall winners again in Le Mans, I think it's a huge shot in the arm for everybody at Maranello and everybody that's related to Ferrari in any way, shape, or form. So I think it could give them a shot in the arm, no question, in terms of being just a morale boost and actually talking about Ferrari winning something again, because it's been a long time since they won something in Formula One. It's been 15 years since they were champions, and been a long time since they even so much as won a race, was how much they've struggled recently. But again, you look at some of these comments today. I mean, Ferrari finishing in 4th and 5th, and Leclerc saying he's happy. I mean, that should not be the case when you're driving for Ferrari. I think that the standard for Ferrari for so long has been win or bust, championship or bust. So the fact that Leclerc is saying he's happy without even getting onto the podium tells you where they've been. And I suppose it is a step forward, but at the same time, still multiple steps forward to take. There's 3 teams ahead of them in the constructors right now that are clearly, I think, ahead of where their program is at this point. So a lot to do to move that team forward. Again, credit to Sainz for holding off Perez and that second Red Bull car there and keeping Red Bull from maximizing the damage even more. But I think for Ferrari this season, the damage has already been done. And despite the steps forward that they appear to have taken from their lowest point, there's still plenty of steps to go.
One of the things you mentioned, Ben, Charles Leclerc saying he's happy. I felt it was more relieved that they seem to have a somewhat good race, which goes to your point. This is Ferrari. They shouldn't be relieved that they finished 4th and 5th place. It's not like they have a car that's horrible in the mid-90s where they're just struggling to try to get podiums. They have a car that I think is capable of winning. They just have to put together that perfect race and get up there and make little mistakes, which we saw Carlos Sainz overruling the team when they wanted him to go in a different direction with strategy. Is there something where for Ferrari, I think they're really starting to hopefully work out everything, because we know they got a new team principal. They still seem to have the troubles, the struggles. So it's not just replacing the team principal from last year to this year. I'm hoping they're really starting to get everything together. The road is not going to be easy, though. Aston Martin looks strong. Mercedes looks strong. You may have to settle for 4th place in the constructors because it's that early struggle that has put them behind them. If they could get to the point where we're seeing Charles Leclerc contend for podium finishes, that would be a great step forward. But overall, I think they still have a ways to go. And to say they're happy, I think just shows how much it's fallen from last year, the beginning of last year, where we thought Ferrari was going to bring the fight to Red Bull, to this year where Ferrari gets a podium. It probably feels like a great day for them. And that's a big drop from expectations.
Yeah, the expectations of Ferrari are enormously high, and lately in Formula One, they haven't been meeting those expectations. And we also need to remember that Ferrari brought a new team principal, Frederick Vasseur, to try to turn this program around. He's currently in his first year with Ferrari. So as we were saying over the offseason when they appointed him, we need to give him time to try to make the necessary changes, get all the right people in place, and try to formulate a plan to get Ferrari back to where it should be, at the very front of the grid, competing for wins and Formula One World Championships. And I think that this is something that's just going to have to take some time to see if Frederick Vasseur is going to be able to turn this Formula One program around. But as we know in motorsports, sports in general, you're not given time. People want to see results now, and overall, just reflecting on this whole Canadian Grand Prix weekend. While there wasn't a battle at the front of the field, Verstappen in a class of his own, historic win for Red Bull, win number 100. And moving on to our next series, the NTT IndyCar Series, another team got a historic win, their 250th.
250th win, a big day, and a physical and eventful day at Road America, of course, for the NTT IndyCar Series. The Sonoso Grand Prix of Road America saw plenty of cars beating and banging, spinning, and 4 full course cautions throughout the day. Of course, we had a situation where the track was repaved, so much faster speeds. Coming into the race, drivers didn't have no more than 8 laps of race conditions, so it was really interesting to see what occurred. Of course, a lot of cautions. Colton Herta, he started the race on the pole, led a good portion of the race until a slow pit stop dropped him in the back, but he still worked his way up towards the front using strategy. But with 8 laps to go, got passed by Alex Palou. Herta trying to save fuel while everyone else was still going full speed ahead. Alex Palou gets another win, 2 in a row, 3 of the last 4 races. Now he is over 70 points ahead. And the next race, Mid Ohio, is the halfway point of the season. So for Ganassi, should they really try to start consider maybe keeping Palou instead of letting him go to McLaren?
Well, I don't really know how the legal and contract situation works with all of this, but considering what we've seen between Chip Ganassi Racing and Alex Palou, why would you want to break up a good thing? It's just been so amazing to see how strong this team and driver combination have been. Everything has been close to perfect as you can be, and I know a lot of people are expecting Palou to go to Aaron McLaren next year in IndyCar, especially after all that messy contract situation last year. But if there's a way to keep Alex Palou at Chip Ganassi Racing and if Palou is open to remaining with the team, I think they should do everything they possibly can to stay together, because Palou and Ganassi could be the new Dixon and Ganassi of IndyCar, because I'm actually speechless right now talking about this, because it's been a long time since I've seen a team and driver performing so strongly, and you have to give massive credit to both sides after the ugly situation last year that got taken into the courts, to be able to put that aside and get back to your winning ways. It just shows you that both sides are just committed to winning and being at the top of their game. So personally, I think it would be in Palou's best interest right now, long term, to try to find a way to stay at Chip Ganassi Racing if it's possible. I'm not sure if he goes over to the Aaron McLaren team that he'll be able to find the same amount of success. Although Aaron McLaren has a really good IndyCar program within himself, and also you have to ask, if Palou keeps running extremely well like this, will a Formula One team come knocking on the door for him? Because Palou is more than capable of going to Formula One if he decides to do so. And that was one of his main draws for trying to align himself with McLaren during the off weekend while most of the IndyCar drivers were off. Palou went to Europe and he tested a McLaren Formula One car. It's most drivers' dreams to go to Formula One, and I'm sure if the door opens, he'll certainly be able to take it.
I can't help but think back to the original tweet when all this stuff started going down, and people comparing it to the tweet that confirmed that Alexander Rossi would be joining Aaron McLaren in 2023, and looking at Palou in that situation and comparing the two tweets. Palou's tweet just said he's joining McLaren. It didn't say anything about Aaron McLaren going forward, and then there was a whole legal situation, and obviously they resolved it, and he's back with Ganassi this year and could be well on his way to a championship again. But I just feel like if Palou gets the call to go to Formula One, whether it's with McLaren or with somebody else, I think any F1 team would be lucky to have him with the way he's driving right now. Then I think you absolutely run and take that opportunity. If you don't have an F1 opportunity waiting for you, why in the world would you want to break up what you have right now? This is clearly, like you were saying, Kobe, a situation at Ganassi that is so incredible right now that it's leaving a lot of people speechless in terms of how well Palou is doing. It is reminding people of the relationship that Ganassi's had with his teammate Scott Dixon for the last couple of decades here in IndyCar, being so dominant, winning races left and right, competing for championships on pretty much an annual basis here. Why would you want to break that up? The only reason I could see wanting to break that up is if McLaren are promising, if not an F1 seat, at least the opportunity to test a Formula One car and maybe a couple of years from now being in line for an F1 seat. And again, that's where that wording in the tweet came in, with people trying to read between the lines here and say, is he just joining the McLaren family to go down the path to Formula One, or is he actually going to be competing against his current team, Ganassi, with the McLaren IndyCar program? So there's a lot of time left in this season. We'll see if Palou can keep this run going, or if somebody starts to go on a little run of their own and close the gap. But he certainly seems to be in prime contention for another championship right now. And again, if there's no F1 opportunity waiting there, why would you want to break this up with Ganassi? Again, like you, Kobe, I don't know what all the legal situation is right now between the two programs and Alex himself, but I would think that if there's an opportunity for Ganassi to keep him, they're going to be all over that and trying to figure out somehow, some way, how can we make sure this guy's driving our car again in 2024, and not just in 2024, for a long time to come.
And one of the things with Palou, with what he's doing, Scott Dixon's his teammate. He has Marcus Ericsson as a teammate. Marcus Armstrong had a really good race going. He's very much brand new, but those other two drivers, it's not like they're just brand new and Alex Palou's leading team, he's beating them week in and week out. Scott Dixon, with all the records he has, his accomplishments in this career in INDYCAR, Alex Palou has really risen up as a championship contender. Pretty much, I would say the championship favorite now, considering how strong he's looking. And he had to come back from crashing right before qualifying, hard crash in that final corner, getting the car back together. That team seems to be motivated and determined, because what an effort by that team to go from a crash car, still qualify up front, and then come back to get the win in one of the most physically demanding tracks, the 4 Mile Road America circuit, a track where he's won before. So he probably had all that confidence, but we've seen time and time again, he has gone to tracks he hasn't raced at before and get the win there. Alex Palou, he is now in a spot where the next race, he knows he's going to leave with the points lead, meaning essentially there's only 8 more opportunities for other drivers to take away that points lead from him. Marcus Ericsson, Joseph Newgarden are second and third, but tied for fourth place. We have Pato O'Ward and Scott Dixon. Those two are racing near each other most of the day. We all remember what happened at Long Beach with the two of them colliding. When Pato O'Ward tried to apologize to Scott Dixon was not having any of it and warned him that he'll get his later on. So, Ben, I got to ask you, when it comes to those two drivers battling each other for the championship position in the standings, who do you think is going to break the tie ahead of the other?
It's very tough. I think it comes down to a combination of experience and, what we've seen from the two recently. Obviously, Pato O'Ward is making up for the lack of experience he has compared to Scott Dixon with how well he's been running the last few seasons. It's honestly a toss-up. I don't see anything that very strongly convicts me or leads me in one direction right now. So I'm gonna, instead of just asking to plead the fifth here, or asking for a mulligan or whatnot, I'll just go ahead and take a guess and say experience wins out, and Scott Dixon will get the edge and finish ahead of O'Ward in the standings this year. But maybe Kobe will disagree. We'll see here.
No, actually, I'm in agreement with Scott Dixon here. Can we talk about the drive that he had today to start outside of the top 20, deep in the field, and to get the finish that he did in the top 5? That was just a remarkable Scott Dixon like drive. Exactly what you would expect from him. And typically when you start that deep in the field, you're not even thinking about a top 5 or even a top 10. You just like to try to salvage as many points as you can, especially since the team, had to try to rush and get that car ready for qualifying after the contact with Will Power in the practice session on Saturday. They didn't have a lot of time. They were just able to throw that car together and hope for the best. Qualifying didn't really go well, but it's a Chip Ganassi race and always bring fast cars, whether it's the primary or the backup, to make sure that that all of their cars are ready to go at all times. And Dixon got the track position, was able to do a lot of great things out on the track today, and that's exactly why a lot of people call him the Iceman, because even when you think he's out of it, he's really not. And if Scott Dixon is able to get closer in the championship to his teammate Alex Palou, seems to be running away with things right now. This weekend might be one of the weekends that we're going to be talking about at the end of the season, but at the moment it seems like Alex Palou is on an island all by himself.
I'm going to go, I think, with Scott Dixon, the experience he has, the ability to make the best of a bad situation. Pato O'Ward, he has the speed, he has the talent. I just feel like that McLaren team is not exactly at the same level as Ganassi. If they're up front and stay up front, they could do well. But it just seems when they have bad luck, it just seems to not materialize into anything good for that team. That's why I think Scott Dixon has that experience. The team, they have the upper hand over McLaren. But, of course, this is a long season. We know drivers going to make mistakes during the race. Scott Dixon, especially before the race, we were wondering, he just seemed a little bit off, making these mistakes, the big crash with Will Power. But now, after this race, seeing him come back to finish up in the top 5, what an effort. I think he really is going to be more motivated, and especially this next race at Mid-Ohio. That's a track where I think Scott Dixon is really going to try to put together another solid run. Continue to climb up the point standings. One driver that's hopeful to really start climbing up has to be Will Power. the 4-mile road course, Road America this weekend for Will Power, one to forget about, because the next race at Mid Ohio is a track where we know Will Power is really good at, and his title defense season has been really rough. And overall, just a rough weekend, multiple off-track excursions for Will Power. Kobe, he's having a rough title defense with bad luck, horrible races. Can he make a second half comeback?
Well, I guess we'll see soon. It certainly has been an interesting season for Will Power. I'm looking at his stats right now. He's certainly had some good finishes, but I think that Will Power is certainly going to have some great opportunities to get back up there and try to see how well he can do in the points this year. Right now, I wouldn't say that he's going to be a title contender, that he's going to be able to back up his championship since Palou is really running away with it at the front. But Power actually hasn't had a really horrible season. Looking at it, 7th at St. Pete was good, 6th at Long Beach, 3rd at Barber, and then unfortunately things didn't really go well at Indy. Got a good finish on the streets of Detroit. I think Power is still having a pretty decent season, all things considered, but probably not to the level you'd expect for someone who's just coming off of a championship winning season. I know things didn't really go well for him at Road America, but his Saturday was not good at all. Wanting to fight Scott Dixon, saying Roman Grosjean was a piece of crap and wanted to punch him in the face. Well, Power certainly gave IndyCar a lot of promos that they're going to be used on TV probably in the next several weeks or so. But overall, I think Will Power have some great races coming up as we get a little deeper into the summer.
Yeah, hardly a bad season for Will Power, I guess you could say. 8th in points, 135 back. I think the championship's almost certainly over at this point. I don't see him having enough time to make that up, especially with how well Palou's been running. He's going to need some help even to have him fall back in order to make up the amount of ground he needs to. But could he win a couple races? Could he turn things around, then come back stronger for another potential championship in 2024? I think absolutely. I think he was very close to winning Detroit just a couple of weekends ago, and I think has had some bad races on the ovals, Texas and Indianapolis in particular, that really have moved him further down the points. But like Kobe mentioned as well, he's had some strong runs this season already, just hasn't quite broken through yet, and I think won't be able to break through for title defense. But in terms of turning it around a little bit, I think there's still certainly enough time where he can do just that.
Enough time to come back. We got the second half of the season coming up. I think Mid Ohio is a track where he could really just see as sort of, okay, let's get back to where we need to be, consistently up towards the front, try to get the win. Because at the end, even though Alex Palou is looking tough and hard to beat, we still got that second half of the season. Anything could happen in IndyCar, traditionally one of the more competitive series in the grid ranking. And overall, I think very exciting upcoming second half of the season. Comment in the chat from Adam Lemery. Scott Dixon will be a contender at Mid Ohio. Alex Palou as well. I think those are two very good picks for Mid Ohio, which of course is going to be that first week in July 2nd. Kobe, speaking about the second, we got to talk about MotoGP, their second race of the weekend, the German Grand Prix.
Yeah, and in the German Grand Prix was Jorge Martin showing the entire MotoGP paddock that he's the real deal and can put together a complete race. From 6th place, he fought Pecco Bagnaia and just held off the 2022 world champion by inches in a dramatic photo finish. Martin's second career Grand Prix win, considering his impressive rookie year, a forgetful 2022, and now he's second in the points. Martin is only 16 points behind Bagnaia. Did you see Jorge been up in the championship fight at the start of the season, considering how last year seemed to be a really down year for him?
Honestly, no, I did not anticipate Jorge Martin to really deliver the kind of performances we're seeing now. That first year, he got injured, missed a couple races, came back very fast. So there's the potential that he can ride a very fast bike and bring it to us the front. But he only got one win. Then last year, it was just up towards the front for qualifying, but then crash out, not a contender. Just seemed to be to the point where Jocko was ahead of him in the points. I just really felt like, okay, maybe he's not the real deal. He missed out on that factory Ducati seat. Let's see what happens this year. But it seems like now he's really starting to put together some strong runs. He got the sprint win. He got this win, his second Grand Prix victory of his career. And he just looks so confident. If he's confident and making good race decisions, he's going to be hard to beat. I think he really showed today. He's going to bring the fight to Pecco Bagnaia. Yesterday, I said I don't think he would. If Pecco Bagnaia was leading, he may just stick behind, ride it out, get second place, get those points. But he really brought the fight to Pecco, and that finish, what a great finish between the two of them, just inches apart at the finish line. Jorge Martin, I think, is really showing he is a championship contender.
Yeah, for sure. And Martin ended up leading the Ducati train to the finish, seven out of the top 8 positions. The only non-Ducati rider was Jack Miller in 6th in the KTM. Brad Bender was running up front and crashed out. Yamaha, nothing from them today. Aprilia, they're still not where they were last year, as we said on the pre-race show yesterday. Do you think at this point with Ducati, having the best bike overall, should the 2024 bike development begin for all the new Ducati teams right now? Is 2023 already a lost year for them?
For Yamaha, I would say yes, it's a lost year for them. They're just struggling to a level where we knew Yamaha didn't exactly have the best bike. So there was all the rumors that Fabio Quartararo will leave Yamaha. He didn't. This year is looking so bad. If I was Fabio Quartararo, I'll be asking the Yamaha folks, let's look at focusing in 2024. We need something to be competitive with the Ducatis. The straight line speed, they're beating us. The cornering, they've gotten better. Let's just focus on that, and then we just go out there, try to salvage what we can point-wise. When it comes to Aprilia, I feel that is the biggest surprise considering how they looked really good last year. A lot of people thought Aprilia was on the rise. This year, they just don't seem to be at that level yet, which is a big surprise. Maverick Vinales, not exactly a great weekend. The beginning of the year looked great, but the last few races, not yet. I think they should look at, hey, let's get everything all together, reset. Let's just try to get these points, not push ourselves, because at the end, if we could get the points, get Aprilia up ahead, because Honda, they're way behind. Yamaha, we're ahead of them. That leaves Ducati up ahead of them. So essentially, it could be a good year for Aprilia still. Maybe look at a couple podiums, but that Ducati train, Kobe, it was just something else where the racing was pretty phenomenal. But if you're anybody outside Ducati, you're really just not enjoying it. Jack Miller, I don't know how he felt being the lone Ducati in the top 8 finishers. That's just really something else. I can't think of really any other series where we see one manufacturer take the top 7 out of 8 positions.
Well, it's basically happening right now in supercars for the most part. With Chevrolet dominating and Ford not really happy with the parity that's going on between the manufacturers right now. But looking at all the MotoGP manufacturers, the non-Ducati ones, it has to be frustrating because there's like nothing that those riders can do, and they're basically, the Ducatis are basically on a class of their own, and everyone else is basically racing in their own separate class behind the Ducatis. Yeah, so I think it would be a smart idea for them to start the bike development for next year and try to close the gap heading into 2024 and try to salvage what you can through the rest of this year. Very, very frustrating, but hey, that's a hand they've been dealt, and they just have to do the best job that they can possibly do. And one of the biggest stories of the day was a single Honda starting the race, and Marc Marquez had a high side crash in the morning warm-up. He looked stunned, and it took a while to get back compared to yesterday. He withdrew from the event and did not start. And online, many were expressing concerns about his safety, his horrible weekend, and if he's fit to race, given all of the crashes that he's had in the recent races he's been a part of. Joe, should Honda and Marc Marquez consider parting ways after the season? I know we've been talking about Marc a lot lately and all of the mistakes that he's made, but today seemed very different.
This weekend just seemed very different. We all anticipate this is a track it's unbeatable at, king of the ring. This is their opportunity. And it just seemed to be a miserable weekend. As we talked about yesterday, it looked like a rookie out there with the mistakes he was doing. And then we had this in the warm-up session, another vicious high side. Wasn't as bad as the one last year where he really got tossed off the bike, missed the race. But after that high side, It wasn't like what we saw the day before where he quickly got up, ran to the scooter, get to the paddock to get on the new bike. He just really seemed stunned. He sat on the wall. He talked to the marshals for quite some time. This is not the Marc Marquez of before. I don't know if it was just Marc Marquez realizing I'm not in a good spot to race this weekend, because I really feel like he was not going to be that good behind the bike riding it today, because we saw him get 11th place in the sprint race. Uncharted territories for him at this track. No points still for him earned this weekend. It's just really not looking good for Marc Marquez. There's been some people questioning whether or not he should retire. He just doesn't seem to be on that level. There's talks about him and Honda that the bike is just the problem. All sorts of issues going on over there. And I think really, besides Honda, one of the key stakeholders that might have a say in this is Repsol. Repsol has been a long-time sponsor for the factory Honda team. They've been loyal to Marc Marquez, but we've seen Honda will move on. They'll find another rider. They'll develop another bike. Maybe it's time to say, hey, we're going to cash in on the chips we had that Marc Marquez will get us more championships. Start looking at another rider out there. Which riders will want to potentially go to Honda? You never know. You could look at potentially a rider like Fabio Quartararo, Yamaha, not exactly having the greatest success there. We know Juan Mir is not having a good year with Honda either. So maybe it is the bike. At the end, if Marc Marquez and Honda were to split, I'm not at a point where I would not be surprised by it. I'm almost anticipating at some point we're going to hear that Honda and Marc Marquez are going to part ways, just because the way things been going since that injury, they don't seem like where they should be. And if it was any other rider, I think that split would have occurred already.
Yeah, for sure. And I've actually lost count of how many times we've seen Marquez crash. It's just uncharacteristic of him, and it really doesn't seem like he's in a good place right now, because these mistakes on the track are not like Marquez. And then it was actually a really sad sight, seeing him this morning. As you say, as we were saying, looking stunned, like in disbelief that this is happening. You have to wonder, there's a lot of self-doubt stepping into his mind and wondering, am I still that same guy who won all those races and championships? Can I still compete at the highest level of MotoGP? And Joe, looking at everything that Honda and Marquez have accomplished together, I agree with you. Also would not be surprised if we see those two split up. Yeah, you can win all those races, championships, and experience a lot of success, but sometimes when you're together in a partnership for so long, it becomes old, and sometimes it's just best for both sides to move on. Yeah, so I would not be surprised if we see Honda and Marquez decide to go in opposite directions at the end of 2023. But more so, I hope Mark is okay mentally and all of that, because when you look in the mirror and in the past, seeing where you were and where you are now, I know that certainly can't be easy for him, given all of these struggles that we've seen from him. But luckily, still got a lot of MotoGP races to go, and there's still some time for Marquez to turn his luck around. Not thinking about the championship, could potentially win a race later in the season. Who knows? But as I was saying yesterday, the best thing for him is probably just to simply finish the race. And today he didn't even get to start the race, unfortunately. And this Marquez and Honda situation is something that I'm sure we're going to be following for the next several weeks and months ahead here at Grid Network. And next, here's Joshua Birch with his thoughts on today's MotoGP and Formula One races.
Hello, everybody. Sorry, once again, I can't be on the Grid Wrap-Up show, but we've been on here all day, and the power cuts keeps coming in. If you watched our watch-along, you might notice that we lost TV pictures right before the start of the race. We got them back, but we're having data issues as well. Internet's not clear. And if you can tell by my hair and my clothes, I am soaked, because we had to run out from the commentary box in the rain, and it's just drenched us. So we're all muddy, we're all smelly. It's been hot and humid in the box. We're all sweaty. So I'm recording this, sending it to you, then getting out of here. I'll be on tomorrow though for the encore show. But just a quick thought about what happened there in the Canadian Grand Prix. I'm so happy to say that I was commentating when Max Verstappen equaled Ayrton Senna's record. 41 career wins. Absolutely a domination for him as well. Just 100 wins as well for Red Bull. That is so good. A fizzy drinks manufacturer turned into a brand. They get 100 Formula One race wins. Without a doubt, one of the best performances I think I've ever seen in motorsport. A great story for them. Doesn't mean I'm enjoying this, because I really want to see Fernando Alonso get a race win. It is coming at some point this year. It's just taking its time to really judge up the front of the field. We will see it soon. Austria next up as well. That's going to be close. Let's just talk about it as well. Alexander Albon, P7. That's my good news story of the day. Really great stuff for him. Absolutely fantastic. Good points to him. Fantastic points for him, in fact. Because the team only had one coming in, and that was his 1 point he had back in Bahrain. So to get a multiple of points here, 6 I believe, that's fantastic for him. Further down the field, bad luck for Lando Norris as well. Got that 5-second time penalty. He was just dropped back as well. Valtteri Bottas, pick up on that. Finally gets a point. So many races he's been outside of the points now. He finally picks one up. Brilliantly deserved as well. After being beaten by Stroll at the line by 30 thousandths of a second, he just got it back with the Lando penalties. That was great to see. A champions podium. Max Verstappen, Fernando Alonso, 2-time world champions. Lewis Hamilton, a 7-time world champion. All of those, the only three in the series on the podium together, was brilliant. Talking about MotoGP, what a turnaround. Bagnaia was slow all weekend long, and that was really affecting with him as well. Looking at that, I would now say that Jorge Martin, who took the win here today, and the sprint race yesterday and the feature today, he's now in championship contention. Was it 16 points the gap? Brilliant. That is now Bagnaia going to be feeling the pressure on the back of his neck from the Prima Pramac of Jorge Martin as well. Bezecchi's getting in there, so is Zarco. It's going to be fun. Fun end to the season. We're only halfway through. We're into our summer break there for that as well, and also for the British Touring Cars. We'll talk more about that in the Encore show as well. But it was brilliant. Absolute brilliant weekend. Marc Marquez, though, crashing 5 times, I don't think was right. I'm glad he pulled out. I'm sad he's injured. He's broken a finger as well on his left hand. But 5 crashes, I said he was going to kill someone if he didn't back out of it. He was not on the ball this weekend. So glad, right decision, he decided not to race. But it's been a crazy one. Absolutely crazy weekend. We're all flaked out as well. It was worse than Le Mans, in fact, because there was so much on. I haven't seen any INDYCAR, so I can't talk about that because I commentated on about 5 laps, then had to leave to do Formula 1. Jess and Ed were commentating on that as well. Jess Ball and Ed Hunter commentated on that for us. So I'm going to go watch that now, have some cake, and happy Father's Day to everybody out there. Hope you're having a very lovely day. Thanks for putting me on this little show, this little bit. I'll talk more tomorrow on the Encore about Moto2 and Moto3, a bit more about MotoGP and F1, and of course wrap up of what happened as well with British Touring Cars as they enter their summer break from Alton Park. Touring Cars back to their best as well. So have a great rest of the show, or if you're wrapping up and you've put me at the end, great show. And I'll see you for the Encore show tomorrow, and I will also see you for the Grid Tonight on Wednesday as well. Nice weekend. Where are we next weekend, Joe? Oh yeah, Portland. I wish I was with you. Hope you have fun. We'll see you. Catch up soon. Because the Formula E shows will also be on the Grid Network. The races will upload after, like what we did for INDYCAR as well. So it's going to be a great, great weekend. Take care. See you soon.
Thank you, Josh. We will see you tomorrow on Encore. And if I can just echo real quick as well, just absolutely flabbergasted what's going on with Marc Marquez. Although I don't follow MotoGP as closely, I know that he is certainly one of the stars of that series and has a tremendous history. And hopefully he can figure out what's going on. And if not get right again, maybe make the decision, as difficult as it may be, to step aside for a little while and maybe even call it a career, because what we saw this weekend was very uncharacteristic. But at the same time, hasn't been too different from what we've seen from Marc Marquez in recent years. I feel like this isn't the first time we've been talking about him with these controversial crashes and everything. So certainly hope that he can get back on his right foot again and figure things out. But in the meantime, we move on to Supercars. The parody party continued at Hidden Valley Raceway after Mark Winterbottom's surprise win in the Darwin Triple Crown. 2 straight race weekends without a Shane Van Gisbergen win. Of course, SVG is preparing to head here to America to make his NASCAR Cup Series debut at the Chicago Street Course. While SVG didn't win in Darwin, he had consistent performances with results of 6th, 2nd, and 4th. In race 2, it was his teammate Brock Feeney taking the checkered flag The 20-year-old, who's earning the nickname Mr. Sunday, is starting to emerge as a serious title contender. The final race of the weekend went to another surprise winner, Jack LeBrock, getting the job done for Matt Stone Racing. 3 different drivers, 3 different teams standing on the top step of the podium, and 3 different great stories. Winterbottom got his first win in 2,414 days. Feeney's meeting the all-time, all the high expectations, and seems to be turning into the young star driver that people expected him to be, plus a huge confidence boost for LeBrock after experiencing an up-and-down career to date. Kobe, after the likes of Scott McLaughlin and SVG have been dominating Supercars competition in recent years, how refreshing is it to see new storylines emerging and small teams being able to win these races?
I think it's really great for supercars that we're starting to see a lot more parity now, and not to take away from the era of Scott McLaughlin and Dick Johnson racing or Shane Van Gisbergen and Red Bull Ampol racing. Those drivers deserve an extreme amount of credit for being able to do what they've been able to do, dominating all of these races for the last handful of years. But to finally see that advantage those drivers had to finally start to go away, and to see a more competitive championship. And looking at the results, you see a whole bunch of different teams up there each race now. I think that's fantastic. And during our time here with Grid Network, whenever we're talking about supercars, it's been a struggle trying to figure out how to keep talking about Shane Van Gisbergen when it's basically the same storyline over and over. He dominates the weekend, he wins again, but this year Red Bull Ampol racing in the first year of Gen 3, it really seems like that they've had a lot tougher time with the competition getting a lot closer. So it hasn't been the cakewalk we expected it to be with Shane Van Gisbergen this year. I know in recent years of this championship, by this point, we're thinking Shane has one hand on the championship. Everyone else is just racing for second. And now we have a real legitimate championship battle on our hands. You got Kostecki still leading, Will Brown, Brock Feeney, Shane Van Gisbergen, Chaz Moss and everybody else is, and down there, probably not in the game, but the top 4, I think those are definitely the top 4 drivers who are going to be competing for the championship for the next several races or so. So we don't know who's going to win the Supercars championship right now. It still seems to be wide open. I think that's great for the competition and for those small teams to win. I thought that was great for Team 18 and Matt Stone Racing. And after the race yesterday on Superview, they were talking about all the parts now on the Gen 3 car compared to the Gen 2. And during the Gen 2 era, the teams were able to get an advantage by spending lots of money to develop certain parts. But in the Gen 3 era, they have spec parts now, and you're not allowed to develop those. And that's where the teams with the bigger budgets, like Dick Johnson Racing or Red Bull Ampol racing, the Triple 8 operation, that's where they had their advantage in the past. But now that advantage is gone, and it gives smaller organizations like Matt Stone Racing and Team 18 a true chance to shine. Yeah, so it was definitely a great weekend for one of the more underdog teams in the sport to see a Mark Winterbottom and a Jack LeBrock stand on the top step of the podium and go to victory lane. I'm sure at the beginning of the weekend, nobody would have even imagined picking Winterbottom or LeBrock winning a race. Those 2 wins were like really surprising to me.
Let's talk about the final race a little bit. The championship leader, Brody Kostecki, had major issues at the start when he made contact with another competitor and broke the steering on the car. He took it to the garage where Rebus Motorsport repaired it and got the number 99 Chevrolet back on track, although he lost a few laps. Kostecki finished 26th, and his championship lead is down to 59 points, with teammate Will Brown closing the gap. Brock Feeney is third in points, 91 back, while SVG is 110 points behind fourth in the championship as it stands. So, Kobe, with Kostecki having an issue, does it feel like this will be a competitive fight for the championship this year instead of a single driver just running away with it?
I feel like I kind of answered that question in my last answer, but that was super unfortunate for Brody Kostecki. He's been having a very consistent season up to date, and for that to happen, I'm sure he wishes he could have had that start back. At the start of these supercars race to try to get as much position as you can. Unfortunately, got run into. Broke the steering there. The team did the best they could to repair it. Try to salvage some points, but still, very bad finish for him, which is going to allow his teammate Will Brown and all the others close the gap there. As you mentioned, I think right now it's a 4-horse race for the Supercars championship. We'll see if Shane Van Gisbergen can try to click off some wins as we enter the second half of the Supercars season. Brock Feeney has a lot of momentum. But right now, Brody Kostecki, Will Brown, the two drivers from Erebus Motorsport, best thing they can do is just continue to be as consistent as you possibly can. And I think in any given championship, you're due to have an off race like this. Shane Van Gisbergen's big off race was the one he got disqualified from that really put him back by a lot. Brody had his bad race, and the best thing he can do is just forget about this horrible day and get ready in a couple of weeks' time. We're going to be racing on the streets of Townsville. And see, Adam Limber says the Repco Supercars Championship has been really competitive this year. All around good racing. Totally agree with that.
I think the F1 fans maybe feel now how the Supercars fans have felt the last couple of years with SVG just dominating everything. I think Max Verstappen's doing something similar in Formula One this year. So great to see some parity in this series. Maybe we can get some more in Formula One in 2024 and beyond. But as for right now, we'll bring Joe back in and we'll talk a little bit about an update to the grid ranking and the EPI.
Taking a look at the grid ranking week 10, Max Verstappen once again continues to lead. He has led every week so far. But second place, Alex Palou, 18.50, getting another win. He climbs from third to second place. It's been a long time since we've seen an IndyCar driver in the top 2. So overall, Palou, he has finished every race in the top 10 with only one finish worse than 5th place. And many would say Max Verstappen, he is having a great season overall. But of course, in Formula One, we know a lot of times you need a good car to be up front. If you don't have that car, you're going to be towards the backs. Alex Palou, IndyCar, different story. Notorious for having different winners. Consistency being an issue. If you're consistent enough, you could win the championship like Will Power did last year with one win. But a lot of times people have at least one or two bad races. Knock on wood, Palou has not. Kobe, are you surprised to see Alex Palou go from essentially, like, I think at the beginning of the year, people saw him as a potential contender to now a championship favorite and almost dominating essentially IndyCar lately?
I'm not surprised. I wasn't surprised for him to be a potential contender. I think I'm more surprised that he is absolutely dominating the series. And as I said on Twitter, the chemistry between him and Ganassi are a match, and he's definitely on a completely different level right now compared to the field. If we get a few more races and Palou continues to win, finish on the podium, before there might be a handful of races left in the year, and we might be saying Alex Palou has one hand on the championship. It might very well lock it up early before we get to the season finale. But let's not crown him yet. There's still a whole bunch of racing left in this IndyCar season. So Palou can have one bad race, and with the big IndyCar fields we have now, have a bad race, finish last, and your championship competitors up there have a good race, get some good points. This could swing very quickly, but it's just incredible to see what Alex Palou has been doing in the last couple of months or so. To start off the month of May, winning the GMR Grand Prix, getting the pole for the Indy 500, and who knows how the Indy 500 race itself would have turned out if it wasn't for the contact on pit lane with Rinus VeeKay. We might be talking about an Indy 500 champion as well. Did a really good job scrapping his way back to a top 5 in the greatest spectacle in racing, then winning the first race in the downtown city streets of Detroit, and then winning at Road America as well. The IndyCar Championship certainly has to go through Alex Palou right now, because it's amazing to see the form that he's at. Like I said, it's been a long time since I've seen a driver in the IndyCar series perform this strong. It's just incredible. I'm just lost for words.
I can't say I'm surprised at this point, because we know what Alex Palou can do behind the wheel of an IndyCar. I was surprised in 2021 at how quickly he became a championship contender, but at this point, it's not any more a surprise to me. We know what Palou is capable of, and he's proven it really each of the last several races here in this series. And like Kobe said, I think we very well could be talking about him in just a few months as having one hand on the championship, if not clinching the championship outright a few races early, or maybe not a few races early, but before the season finale, which I can't remember the last time we were able to say that in IndyCar. I know even before they have a double points finale, it usually came down to the last race in some form or another. But Palou has just opened up such a big gap at this point. If he can keep this up, he might very well be in position to do just that. So, like I said, it's not really a surprise with Alex Palou anymore. We know what he's capable of, and he is proving it week in and week out in the IndyCar series.
For me, it was a surprise, because after last year, with all the distractions, not perform at the level he was at the year before in 2021 when he got the championship, I thought this is a driver that this season, last year with Chip Ganassi Racing, we don't know exactly what's going on with McLaren. He's just going to go out there, score points, and get some wins occasionally. But IndyCar is so competitive. We saw earlier on he had an 8th place finish, then a 5th place finish. And then it just seems all of a sudden that team has kicked high gear, and now it's a couple wins. Really, the Indy 500 could have been another opportunity to get a win. That slipped away. So, unfortunately, big missed opportunity for him to get points there. But he still recovered to come back, finish in the top 10, make the best results. He did it again. So for me, it was a surprise, but thinking about it more and more, considering what that team's capable of doing, Chip Ganassi Racing and Alex Palou's 2021 season, this is just something where I think he is definitely a championship favorite and one for everyone to watch, including in the grid ranking. Taking a look at the full grid ranking, of course, we didn't have the NASCAR Cup Series going on. They'll be back next week along with World Rally Championship. And overall, quite a few changes when it comes to the grid ranking. George Russell, he is just at the bottom, but Charles Leclerc with that points finish, 4th place, he is climbing up. And of course, Formula E, they'll be next weekend at Portland for the Portland E Prix. We will be there. And Grid Endurance Performance Index Week 10. We have Ryo Hirakawa and Sebastian Buemi tied for the lead after the Le Mans 24-hour race. Both of their points came down a little bit since they didn't get the win. And then every Wednesday, the Grid Endurance Performance Index will be updated on Grid Tonight. So be sure to subscribe to us right here on the Grid Network. Now, one of the big things, busy race weekend, time for the one shining moment. So overall, Ben, I'm going to start with you. When it comes to the grid, one shining moment, what are you looking at from this past race weekend?
I want to give a call to Alex Albon. I believe he was 7th today in the Formula One race. I know he was up there in the points a lot further up than we'd expect a Williams to be there, but a great run for him and that team. I feel bad for Logan Sargent, his teammate, who had to retire the car after just a few laps there, and still hoping that he can pick up some points here, eventually become the first American since Michael Andretti in 1993, 30 years ago, to pick up points. But if Albon's performance today is any indication, maybe that car is going to be capable of it at some point this year for Sargent. But a great run for Albon. And again, we don't know what's going to happen in this sport. There's still a lot of time left in this season, but I think people were maybe a little bit disappointed with Sergio Perez only bringing it home in 6th today. Some talk out there potentially that maybe some people might want to see Albon be given another chance. I know he didn't do so well up against Max Verstappen when he was in that Red Bull the first time. Maybe there's an opportunity for redemption there, or if not in the Red Bull, at least maybe in a more competitive car further down the line for Alex Albon than that Williams right now. But a great run for him nonetheless. That is my one shining moment on this weekend of racing today.
And I'm going to give my one shining moment to Mark Winterbottom for winning again for the first time since 2016. I believe it was 2,414 days. That's a very long time since his last win. The last time he won a race, I was just a senior in high school, and that's already been a handful of years ago. So it's in looking at his stats, it's really crazy looking at that and seeing how dominant Winterbottom used to be in the year 2015. He won a total of 9 races, and for a good portion of his early career, Winterbottom was one of the top drivers in the Repco Supercars Championship. And since 2016, he's kind of just been, in the midfield and all of that. But this year with the new regulations change, we're really seeing Team 18 and all those other smaller teams really step up their game to take the fight to the big dogs in the Supercars Championship. And seeing the emotion from Winterbottom after that, they like to call him Frosty since that's his nickname. It was really nice to see how much this win meant to him. And he even said he forgot what it felt like to win races. And I think that this was the shot in the arm that he needed, and also proves to him that he still has this. Although he's one of the seasoned veterans now in the series, one of the oldest drivers on the grid, he can still compete with the best of the best on any given day.
Mark Winterbottom, definitely one of the shining moments from the chat room. Adam Limmery's also agreeing with you, Kobe. Mark Winterbottom winning race 1. All around great drive in the Repco Supercars Series. A lot of great racing all across the world. My one shining moment, I think it's going to come from INDYCAR, and it's Alex Palou and the way that team responded from crashing right before qualifying. They worked so hard on that car. That could have been the kind of moment where it derails a team for the weekend. We saw how with Will Power, Scott Dixon, they both crashed. They had essentially a hard uphill battle. But what Palou's team did, they worked really hard. They allowed him the opportunity to get a good qualifying effort in and be up towards the front. And that's really what he needed to do because he knows how to win there. He really responded. So I think what could have been a great opportunity for all the other teams to say, hey, he just crashed. It's qualifying. We could go out there, out qualify him, get points on him, gain on him. Not the case. Did not happen at all. Alex Palou definitely stepping it up is my Grid 1 shining moment. And we are all out of time. So I encourage everyone, be sure to visit our Patreon, call the show, Mark Rod and Dave invest in us each and every month. Next weekend, Formula E, we're going to be at the track. We want to be at more events, so you invest in us and we could get to about $500 a month. We could be at the track more regularly. Myself, Ben, Joshua, everybody could hopefully have those opportunities. You could also do buy me a coffee. So you want to buy a cup of coffee for anyone particular on the Grid Network team or for the Grid Network, of course. Click on the link, both links in the video description. Also visit gridranking.com for our latest articles. On our LinkedIn page, if you have interest in entering motorsports journalism, have some journalism experience, and want to gain some more, check out our LinkedIn page for opportunities. And of course, Grid Ranking on Twitter at Grid Ranking for all the updates, including the EPI Grid Ranking. And lastly, if you're watching us on YouTube, hit that bell icon so when you're subscribed already to us, you get the notification when we go live on the air, and we'll be live on the air tomorrow with Grid Live Encore. Busy show. You're going to have Joshua, also going to have Casey from Berlin. Then we're going to have Wednesday Grid Tonight, Kobe. He's going to be there. Matthew, all the latest news, including the new EPI update. And then we'll be back on the air all over again with Formula E race weekend from Portland, Oregon. For Kobe Lambeth from the Podium Finish and Ben Schneider, I'm Joe Samaniego. Thank you for watching today's program. We'll see you next time. Thank you for watching us right here on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and check out some of our other videos, including Life on the Grid, where we interview folks from the motorsports industry. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.